morning. It is time to get up with Aaron. Back at the office. Really be better than ever. Can he put the title in Titletown once more? Meanwhile, Lamar's got plans, and they involve him being number one in more ways than one. Can the Ravens do it this year? And then the hit parade continues. Next stop, Travis Kelce. Wait until you hear what number he's wearing this season in the way that matters most. All that and more as we get up with you starting right now on a Wednesday. Look who's here. Kimberly Martin for the very first time in our studio today. A delight to have her and a delight to have them. Jeff Saturday's ready to go. Sacho's ready to go. Marcus Spears in hour number 2. And we're talking about Aaron Rodgers. After months of speculation regarding his future with the Packers, in he came yesterday, just strolling in on day one with seemingly not a care in the world. Rodgers in that outfit, entering year number 17 with the organization, which will make him the longest tenured player in Packers history. And so let me bring Rob Domofsky into the conversation here, and I want everyone to feel for Rob. He came back from his vacation on Monday and has probably aged 10 years in the 36 hours since. So you have been there for these last 36 hours. What is the very latest, Rob?
Greeny, it's go time. Shortly after we got off the air for your show yesterday morning, I walked outside the gates at Lambeau Field, stood over the perch of the players' parking lot, and within a few minutes, the cloudy skies had cleared and Aaron Rodgers came sauntering in willy-nilly like nothing had ever happened. He spent the whole day in the facility. He went through the team meeting at around noon, met with people in the building. He may, get this, Greeny, he may have even helped orchestrate a trade. They're talking and almost have a deal done to bring receiver Randall Cobb back. Of course, Cobb played here for 8 seasons, was one of Rodgers' favorite targets. He's now with the Texans. I was told yesterday afternoon that Cobb does expect to be back in Green Bay at some point very soon.
Well, we saw that one of the concessions that we believe that was being made to him was that he would have some more say in things like that. So perhaps you're right. Now he's got a little bit of general manager in him here. So do we expect to see him practicing today?
I was told late last night that we should expect to see him on the field at 10:10 local time. That's when the first training camp practice starts behind me on these practice fields. But how much does he do? Does he participate on a limited basis? Is he full go? That remains to be seen. I don't have to tell you that he skipped all the offseason stuff. We only talked about that every day, every week in April, May, and June. But he has not been on a field since the NFC Championship game loss. But Rodgers has never been one to ease into training camp. He's never, ever been on a pitch count. So I would expect that we would see him do something in that practice jersey today.
All right, and so as we all seek explanations for the seemingly inexplicable things that have happened in the last 24 hours, do we have reason to believe that today we will get some of that?
Well, he's not ducking the media, Greeny, and the team isn't hiding him. I think those are two good signs. He is speaking to the media after practice, somewhere around 1 or 2 local time this afternoon. He's one of 3 players on the media schedule. One of the others is Devontae Adams, who, of course, has been in the news quite a bit. The question is, do we get the cryptic, passive-aggressive, leave everything open to interpretation Aaron Rodgers, or do we get a guy who really gives us some explanation and offers the fans a little bit of a perspective into what went on and why he ultimately decided to come back?
I certainly would vote for the latter if I was getting a say in all of this. We'll see what happens. Domofsky, outstanding work. Thank you so much. We will come back to you, obviously, all day long as this thing continues to develop out there in Green Bay. And so let me bring the crew back in here again, Kimberly and Sacho and Jeff Saturday. I see the smile on your face, and I know why it is. You were right all along. Going back the week after the draft, you came on the show and you said he'll be there and he will play for the Packers. You were right.
It's hard for me to hide my smile. I want to show you my shock face, which is no shock here, Green. The only shock that I have is that Green Bay conceded as early as they did. Honestly, I told you last week, I thought they would push him into missing regular season games to kind of pressure him, and that would be the pressure back on the organization. I think the Packers did exactly the right thing. Look, if there is an olive branch to be handed, they handed it to him and said, listen, before training camp even starts, let's try to get something done. We may only have 1 year left, but here's what we bought if you're the Packers. Time. The best quarterback on our roster, a chance to win the Super Bowl, and time to repair the relationship. If they would have pushed this thing off, I think there's no way they salvage it. At this point, if things go well in the season, potentially a Super Bowl win, I think all parties come back together. So if you're the Packers, you got to be smiling. If you're Aaron Rodgers, you got to be smiling. I love the way this thing worked out.
Yeah, to that point, he didn't miss anything of consequence. I mean, he missed the mandatory, mini camp. But for a player of his stature, obviously, that is exactly the right way to look at it. So, Sacho, all this stuff that has happened here, does it have any impact on their team? Are they, whatever it is they're destined to be this season, will all of this now nonsense, will it wind up having any impact on them at all?
Well, it will if they don't win and they don't win early. So people talk about football. The fun is in winning, and you have a short-term memory when the wins start piling up. But if Aaron Rodgers doesn't play like Aaron Rodgers usually plays, all of a sudden some of those players in the locker room are going to be like, all right, man, you sat out all this time. You did all these things, and you're not doing what we expected you to do. Now, I think everyone expects Aaron Rodgers to be dominant because that's who he has always been, a 3-time MVP, a Super Bowl champion. He's dominant. But if there's the slightest sign of the Packers struggling, I think you're going to see a little bit of fracturing going on in that locker room.
Okay, so we'll see. We expect it to be a really good team. And so, Kmart, let's go, because you had a really interesting perspective as we were talking this morning in our meeting, sort of bigger picture perspective on a look at the ways different quarterbacks handled their off seasons and the different results they got.
Greeny, think about the 5 disgruntled quarterbacks that we had: Russell, Carson, Matt Stafford, Aaron Rodgers, and Deshaun Watson, obviously. 2 of those guys handled things behind the scenes. We knew they wanted out, but it wasn't aired publicly. We weren't talking about it at length with all these details. Those 2 are out. Those 2 went to better situations for them, and Rodgers, Deshaun, and Russell are right where they ended last offseason. So it's interesting to see how those situations unfolded. But as far as Green Bay is concerned, this is a win-win. I mean, Rodgers gets to do at least one more year, and then maybe he tries the Tom Brady route, where I go where I want. But for right now, I will die on this hill and say that Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, to me, that's the best chance for him, is winning a Super Bowl. So I think everybody,
no doubt,
win-win on both sides.
Well, so Jeff, you say no doubt. When last seen, he was on the field in the NFC Championship game, and a somewhat questionable coaching decision to kick a field goal might have been the difference between that team making it to the Super Bowl. Are they that team? Are they, in your view, the biggest threat to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the NFC now that he's back?
Absolutely. Listen, I put Tampa at 1A and Green Bay at 1B. I don't think this team is going to skip a beat. I think Matt LaFleur is one of the best play callers in the NFL. I don't think Aaron Rodgers even has a hiccup. And to what Acho was saying about like the team, this dude knows how to play ball. By the way, he's thrown 4,000 passes fewer than Tom Brady. If you don't think this dude is thinking about this year and years to come, he knows he wants to prove it. It's a prove-it year for him as well. This guy is fired up. He is going to attack this thing. I think this team gives Tampa Bay, or is the biggest challenge to Tampa Bay in the NFC. I love what they've done. I love as the team. And listen, I'm telling you again, I cannot emphasize it more. Getting this done before training camp even started is an olive branch. All the other stuff, the 2023, all that kind of thing, that's all going to work out. But I'm telling you, to get him in and to be happy in training camp, that brings this team together. I love what they did to get this thing solved.
Yeah, and so that was my question for Jeff, and it's my question for you today. On my Twitter page, at ESPN Greeny, we have the poll question up, and it's a pretty simple one. Now that Rodgers is back with the Packers, who is the biggest threat to Tampa, Tom, and the Bucs? I gave you the options of Green Bay, Dallas, the Rams, or other. Keeping a close vote, keeping a close eye on these votes. Keep them coming on Twitter, at ESPN Greeny. We'll update that as we go through the day. Meanwhile, going around the world of sports today, and literally around the world, after suffering an opening loss to France, the U.S. men's basketball team rebounded with a big win over Iran, 120.